Hello, my dear students and the rest of the learners. Welcome to part 23 of Effort 1 part series of tutorials in Fundamentals of Object-Oriented Programming in Java. In this tutorial, we are going to look at what we call the Java nested loops. My name is MemGM, or you can simply call me Emily Swap. When we speak about nested loop, what are we talking about? In Java programming, it is also possible to place a loop inside another loop. So placing a loop inside another loop is what we call a nested loop. The inner loop will be executed one time for each iteration of the outer loop. The following is an example of a nested program implementing while statement and a for loop. So the comment is program implementing nested while loop in a for loop to compute and display sum. The name of the package is nested while for. Then we have import java.atil.scanner. The name of the public class is nested while for. Under it, we have our main method, which is public static void main. Then we declare 5 variables, which are count, num scores, attain total, maximum total, and the score of type integer, and an object called input of type scanner. Then we prompt the user to enter, or we prompt the user for the number of scores that we'd like to compute the sum for. We read that value and store it in the memory location called num scores. We initialize attain total variable to 0. We initialize the counter to 1. And then we perform our for. So we initialize our counter to 1 or count it 1. We check if the value of count is less than or equals to num scores. If that is true, we prompt the user to enter a score. Enter score 1 out of 100 marks. We read the value and assign it in the memory location called score. Then we check if the value entered is greater than 100. So while the value in memory location called score is greater than 100, do what? Display the message that the score must be between 0 and 100. And then you prompt the user to enter the score again. If or once the score is entered, it is read and assigned the memory location called score. Now, if the score that has been entered, is not more than 100, then we come out of the while loop and do what? And do now the addition. Pick the value that has been entered and add it to the content in the memory location called attain score. The results are reassigned back the attain score. And then once we encounter this brace here, this brace, the compiler will go back to this, the last part of this for loop. Increment the value of counter. So if the value of count was 1, it will be added 1 to become 2. Then it will check if the value of count, the current value of count, is less than or equals to num scores. If that is true, it will prompt the user to enter score number 2 and read the value, assign the value there, then check if the value that has been assigned in memory location called score is greater than 100. If that is true, it will display the statement that the score must be between 0 and 100, prompt the user to enter again, read the value, and then once this brace is encountered, if the value entered is more than 100, these statements will be displayed, and these statements will be executed. Otherwise, if the value entered is not more than 100, meaning it's okay, the compiler or the translator will come out, pick the value that has been entered, add it to the current content of the memory location record, attain total, and assign the results into it, and that will continue until the count, the value in count is no longer less than or equals to num scores, and that's the time when this loop will be exited, and then the compiler or the processor will pick the value in the memory location called num scores multiplied by 100, assign the value maximum total, and then execute the statement and end or terminate the program. The following is also another example of a program that adds up even and odd integers from 0, the limit, and specified by the user through the use of the while and if-else structures. So we have our statement import java.13.scanner. Then user enters a value n and it adds up all the integers, even integers, and your integers 1 to n. The name of the public class is and up integers. And then we have our main method, which is public static void main. Then we declare an object called scan of type scanner, and then we declare the variables. Variable n, sum or, sum even, sum odd of type integer, and at the same time initialize sum odd to 0, sum even to 0, and sum odd to 0. Once that is done, we request the user to enter limit value, and that value is read and assigned to the variable location or the n. Once that is done, we then declare a variable called the count of type integer and assign a value 1 into 8. And then we check if the value of count is less than or equals to n. If that is true, then we pick the value in the memory location called count. We add to the memory location of the content of the memory location called sum of, and the overall result, we assign it in the memory location called sum of. Then we proceed and do the following. We check if the value of count divided by 2, that is modulus 2, count modulus 2 is equals to 0. If the content is when you divide what is the memory location called count, you divide by 2 or mod 2 gives you a value which is equal to 0. Then we pick the value in memory location called count, we add what is the memory location called sum even, and the results we assign them into the memory location called sum even. Otherwise, if what is in count when it is divided by 2, that is limit 2, does not give you a value which is equals to 0, then we do this part. We pick the value in memory location called count. We add the value we get to the value in memory location called sum odd, and the results are reassigned in the memory location called sum odd. We then increment the value of count with 1 and store the result in memory location called count. And we continue. That will continue until the value in memory location called count is no longer less than or equals to 1. And then we exit the while and go back to or come out, not even going back, come out of the loop while and display the following statement. The sum of all is, or the sum of all, the compiler will pick or processor will pick what is the memory location called sum of and display it in the screen. So the statement will look on the screen as sum of all. Maybe if sum of all is 50, it will say sum of all 50, sum of all 10. And then what about sum of the even? So it will create a space, display the message sum of even, and pick the value in the memory location called sum even and display it in the screen. And it will also do the same for sum of odd, whereby it will pick the value in memory location called sum odd and display it on the screen, but preceded by the message sum of odd, for example, 20. And with that, the compiler will come to the end of the program or the processor. Let's code this program. Let's code this program and see how it will behave in Java. That is using Eclipse IDE. So how do we proceed? You click on Start menu, then load your IDE, like Eclipse IDE for Java developers. And of course, you wait for it to load. You wait for your program to load. Once your IDE has loaded, you proceed as usual and create a project. You proceed and create a project. So if another program opens, you can click on close all so that you are able to create your new project. So how do you create a new project? So what you do, you click on File menu, point on the new, click on Java project. We can give our Java project a name like and integers. Then you click on finish. Now let me make this, let me rectify this. Always it's good to ensure that your project begins with a small letter and up integers. Then you click on finish. So here is our project. So we can right click on it, point on the new, and then we click on class. Then we can have our name for this class as add up integers. And then you can click on public static void main. Remember, the modifier is public. Then you click on finish. Once we are here, remember to import java dot until, or write the statement java dot until dot kana, and then as usual indent our program, our code, so that it looks presentable. Delete the comment from there, and then code your program here, or paste your program here as usual, or you write it from scratch. If you have typed it in using a processor, or the processor, you can just copy it and then you paste it within your IDE, like the way or what I have done. And then indent your program nicely. You can see that in this program, I have nested if else within the while control structure. As you can see, I am indenting my program that way. Then you can remove any unnecessary code. So this is an example of a nested loop. So we have a loop, which is if else, inside the while structure. So you then save your program, and then you can click on run to see what will happen. You can see my program has been compiled successfully without any errors, and it is prompting us enter limit value. Let me type 12 as our limit. And you can see it has already done the computation. Sum of all 78, sum of all 78, sum of even 42, sum of odd 36. And for sure, if you add 42 plus 36, it will give you 78. You can even add, you can include the new line operator here. So I can have that, then I can have a space \n that way. Then you can save our changes and run our program again. You can see it is prompting for the value, enter maximum limit. Let me type 34. You can see it is now telling us that the sum of all is 595. Sum of even is 306, and sum of the odd is 289. So you can see, my dear students and the rest of the learners, that this program is able to prompt for a value, and then it is able to add the total of all the numbers using the while. So the control structure is able to repeat doing the addition until all the numbers are added between 0 to 34, and the sum is displayed. And then it also segregates between the values of the even and the values of the odd. And for sure, if you add 289 to 306, it will give you 595. And therefore, my dear students and the rest of the learners, that's how the nested loops works in Java. From there, you can close all editors and exit from the control structure. And with that, my dear students and the rest of the learners, we have come to the end of part 23 of 41, which also brings us to the end of the control structures. You can now proceed and watch as well as listen to part 24 of the series, in which we are going to commence learning about the methods, with our attention being paid on what we call the inbuilt methods, or sometimes called inbuilt functions. Congratulations for learning part 23 of 41, on which we have learned about Java nested loops in fundamentals of object-oriented programming using Java. You can access the rest of the parts in the series, as well as other computer or ICT videos, by clicking or tapping on MLSwap ICT YouTube channel below this video. To subscribe to the channel, tap on subscribe button below this video in YouTube if it's not currently reading as subscribed. For any further correspondence, kindly write it to us through the email mlswap@gmail.com. Thank you very much for listening to me, and God bless.